Hello, YouTube! Bill 69. I know it's been a while, but we got hung up on some games. One in particular, which we'll get to, which is the third of these three games. Now, the first game is actually one that we weren't aware of as kids. When we started this quest so many years ago, we picked a lot of games we played as kids that we loved, some of which we beat, some of which we never had beaten before. We picked some that we had only ever played a little bit because we rented them every once in a while or whatever. And then we picked some that we always knew about but had never got the opportunity to play. And then there were some that we looked through, like some lists of what are considered the greatest, retro 16-bit games of all time, and picked some off of that list that we thought looked like they were kind of our style of game, and mixed some of those in amongst all these other types. So this is one of those games that we picked off a list and chose to take a shot at. And it's funny that we never knew about this game because it is released by a company that we absolutely love, and it is a style of game that we absolutely love. And without further ado, the game is called Knights of the Round. I like round, especially when it's two rounds together, but I digress. Knights of the Round, released for the Super Nintendo in the year 1991 by none other than Capcom. Capcom, one of the best, if not the best, video game producers of that era, and of course still in the biz. Now, Knights of the Round is based on King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Whether it's historically accurate or not, I don't know, but that's what it's based on. So basically, after pulling Excalibur out of the rock, Arthur is tasked with tracking down a evil fiend named Garibaldi, who is oppressing all the people in the land. And so your task is to take King Arthur through all these levels and face down the big boss at the end and make all the people happy. So this game can actually be up to 3 players, because joining King Arthur on his quest are his friends Lancelot and Percival, or yeah, that's how you say it, Percival. I think Lancelot and Arthur both come with swords. Percival has an axe, but basically it's a side-scrolling hack and slash type of game. And we compared it very closely to like Golden Axe on Sega Genesis, which that series is one of our favorites of all time. It's so amazing. So it's that kind of style of game, and it works, and it's done by Capcom, so it's obviously fucking brilliant. So you set out on this quest to face down Garibaldi and free all the people, and to do so you have to trek through 7 levels. The levels are all medieval in nature. There's, grassy plains, muddy battlefields, bustling villages, castles, that sort of thing. And at the end of each level, there's a boss, and the boss is just a big beefed up minion of Garibaldi that you have to face down after you're making your way through the level. And during the level, the enemies are all minions of Garibaldi, but they're just regular size guys, and they all come with different types of weapons like bows and arrows, spears, axes, swords, crossbows, that kind of thing. And they all have their different looks and patterns and stuff like that. So you got to face your way through the level, fight down all them, and then take on a boss. Partway through the game, there's a sub-boss that's kind of mechanical in nature. I forget the name of it, but it's more of like a machine thing. But otherwise, the format's pretty standard with level boss, level boss, level boss until the end. And then, of course, in the end, you have to fight Garibaldi in order to complete the game. Now, as you're going through the game, there's a few different types of pickups you have to look for. Treasure is a big one, and treasure gives you points. Sometimes in games, points mean jack shit. In this game, they do not. They are very important, because as you gain points and reach a certain level with your points, your character will upgrade and he'll gain like a little piece of armor and his abilities will go up. He'll get stronger, he'll get tougher. And I can't remember how many levels of upgrades there are, but I want to say there's at least 7 or 8 and maybe up to 10, 11, 12, something like that. So you can upgrade quite a few times. And with each time you get tougher and stronger, like I said. So it's very important to do that. The other thing is food. When you pick up food, you obviously refill your health gauge. It helps you survive a little longer, hold on to your lives, and hopefully not have to continue, or once you run out of continues, restart the game. So those are the two main ones. There's another one that they're these weird little vases or canisters or something like that. And when you grab them, it's one of those ones where it like basically kills off all the enemies on the screen. And it also gives you a huge points bonus. Oftentimes when you use that item and kill all the characters on the screen, you also gain so many points that you'll automatically level up a level. So they're very, very important. When you find those, make sure to use them. So yeah, so a really fun game. 7 levels, not too challenging, but challenging enough that you have to be a little careful. You can't just wheel and deal and die a bunch of times and not care, right? You do have to try and play hard and strategize and make sure you do get the most out of each life you have, right? And then what we really liked about this game, obviously being a Capcom game, the sound, the gameplay, the graphics, everything was spot on. You know a Capcom game when you see one, when you play one. They're very distinctive, and they're always I'm assuming always very awesome, because I've never played a bad Capcom game. I'm not sure they've ever made one, but if they have made one or two, we'll forgive them, because they've made so many fucking good ones. It's unbelievable. And and then the other thing we really like is that it's just that style of game. We love side-scrolling hack and slash platforming type of games. They are one of our favorites, and this game is right smack dab in the middle of that genre, and it's a ton of fun. And the other thing I liked was that it was kind of, like I said, I don't know if King Arthur ever faced down a guy named Garibaldi. But I like the fact that it is based on an actual historical situation, right, with King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table going off to face some danger. I took a little more interest in King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table after the Transformers movie that I think it was The Last Knight, when Marky Mark or whoever it is finds out he's the descendant of King Arthur or whatever, and so the King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table are involved in the kind of story plot of that Transformers movie, which I thought was pretty cool. So I have taken a little more interest in that subject once I saw that movie. So to then play this game was also kind of fun. So that is game number 1. For game number 2, we are staying on the same system, the Super Nintendo, but we're going to flash forward 4 years in the future to the year 1995, when the release of Super Mario Land 2, Yoshi's Island, hit shelves. Of course, being a Mario game, this game was released by Nintendo, and it was actually a staple of my Super Nintendo collection back in the day. I have the cartridge for this game, and I played it quite a bit, and even beat it a couple times here and there. The story is that on Yoshi Island, there's some trouble brewing. The evil witch Kamek, under Baby Bowser's urging, I guess you want to say, has kidnapped baby Luigi. In this game, Mario and Luigi are just newborn babies, sort of thing. So they kidnap Luigi to cause some ruckus. Baby Mario is beside himself, upset that his brother is missing. And so the Yoshis vow to not let this affront go undealt with. And so in each level, Baby Mario hops on the back of a Yoshi and then they take off to face down that level's dangers. And with each level, it's a different Yoshi that, you know, does the heavy lifting in each level. So you're always on the back of a different Yoshi throughout the game. Now, this game features 6 worlds, and each world has a total of 10 levels, with each, the 10th level, the last level of each world being a boss fight. And usually the boss fights are against these really oversized, bizarre types of creatures. Like one's just literally a big fucking blob of jello almost with eyes and stuff. So they're all really weird enemies, the bosses, and you always fight them in that 10th level, which looks like almost like a castle level, right? Like in the old Mario games. Now, as you go through the game, there's lots of enemies that you'll recognize from the Mario Brothers games, like Goombas, Koopas, Boos, that sort of thing. And then there's also ones that are more specific to the Yoshi realm, like bandits and I can't remember the names of the other ones, Kamek's little minions, that sort of thing. And so it's basically like any type of Mario platformer. You're just trying to make your way through the level. You can jump on top of most enemies to kill them, and then of course with their Yoshi being involved, there's some different ways to kill them as well. But you're just tasked with making your way through each level, getting to the end goal, the finish line, and moving on to the next level. Now, Yoshi's Island. I'm not sure if this was the first Yoshi game that featured this kind of system. I'm assuming it was, but the really cool thing about this game is that it features a really different kind of health system. So when you're making your way through the level, you're controlling Yoshi and Mario's on his back. When you take a hit from an enemy or something like that, what happens is you don't lose any, well, you do kind of lose some health, but it's different. Mario is jolted off of Yoshi's back, and a bubble forms around him, and he floats up kind of randomly around the screen, and a countdown timer begins that indicates when Kamek's minions are going to come and swipe baby Mario away, and that's when your turn and your life effectively ends and you have to restart the level. So if you can get to Mario and touch him and get him back on your back, you can continue on like nothing happened. Now, each time you get hit, if you get hit a bunch more of times in a row, your countdown timer will get lower and lower to start with. So you lose that. That's basically your way of losing health, I guess, is that your timer gets lower and gives you less time to recapture Mario. Yeah, and so that's kind of how the health system works. It's a little different, and it's really unique and kind of neat, I thought. As you make your way through the levels, there's lots of things to look out for. Eggs play an important role. Yoshi can swallow them and or swallow enemies and then turn them into eggs, or he can just find eggs throughout the levels and by different means. And then he can use the eggs to shoot them at enemies or shoot them at environmental objects to accomplish kind of his goals in a level. Other things to look out for: there are 5 big white flowers scattered throughout each level. If you gain all 5 of them, I think you earn an extra life at the end of the level, and it also adds to your end of level kind of point totals. There's 20 red coins scattered throughout each level, and once again, if you obtain all 20, it contributes to your end of level status. And there's also these little, they're stars, they're weird looking stars that you can get, and they basically refill Yoshi's health meter, which, like I said, is that timer, which when it's fully charged is 20 seconds. So when you gain these little stars, each one will contribute a second to this timer. So and if you finish the level with like more time, more health on your meter, that also contributes to your end of level kind of status. So those are the main things to look out for as you make your way through the game. Now, when I talk about your end of level kind of status, you'll get a screen at the end of each level saying how many of the 5 big flowers you managed to find, how many of the red coins you got, and how much health you finished with. If you do really well and gain most or all of those things, your point total will qualify you for a bonus level. And there's lots of little, it's not really a level, it's like a bonus game. Like, remember in Super Mario Brothers 3 when you'd go into a Toad house and you'd play like flip the cards to match or whatever like that? They're kind of mini games like that, and depending on how you do, you have a chance to earn extra lives and stuff like that. So that's it depends how you want to approach the game. Do you want to, you know, capture? I'm always a completist. I find I get the most value out of a game by trying to get everything, because then it forces you to slow down, enjoy the game, explore everything. But in this game, it's not easy. So I always tried to get as many as possible. And if I missed a little bit of stuff here and there, I wasn't too pissed off. So it's up to you how you want to approach the game. And then, of course, then there's also regular golden coins in each level, tons of them. And if you gain 100, I think you also gain an extra life. So that's kind of the story of Yoshi's Island. And then, of course, once you get to level 60 or level 10 of World 6, you face down Baby Bowser in the final showdown. And of course, if you beat him, Baby Luigi is reunited with Baby Mario, and the entire island of Yoshi's is happy, and they party and they have fun, and everything's all good. So that's the story of Yoshi's Island, and it is a really good game. Like I said, this was a staple of my collection. I played it a lot as a teenager, and first of all, it's a Nintendo game. It's a game in the Mario realm, so you know it's done to the nines. There's really nothing bad you can say about this game. You know they executed it as perfectly as they possibly could. And it's a lot of fun. Like I said, it's a challenging game, especially if you want to try and get everything. But even if you don't, it's still challenging, especially as you get towards the later levels. So, and it's got 60 total levels. So there's a lot of longevity in this game, and there's a hard enough challenge that you're going to have to work for it, right? You're going to have to really buckle down and play well to especially in later levels, to beat this game. The other thing, which I didn't know until recently when I started researching the details on it, it was apparently made featuring this special kind of microchip that only I think 3 other Super Nintendo games ever had, which just allowed the graphics to be a lot more detailed for the time, and sharper and stuff like that. And you really see that in this game. It's there's a lot of detail on it, and it's just a bright, colorful, cartoonish delight. You've got all these different types of environments, if environments, like grassy plains and underground areas in the ocean. There's all this contrast between the levels, all sorts of different colors and obstacles and things you'll see, right? So it's just a really sharply made game in every aspect. So if you haven't played this before and you're a big fan of the Mario verse, play it. The third and final game of this trio was an absolute biatch to complete. And it is a very, very recognizable game for a lot of people. It screams Nintendo. Just by looking at it, you know exactly what system it was released for. And it is called Adventure Island. Adventure Island was released for the Nintendo Entertainment System by Hudson Soft in the year 1988. This was a game that neither Simon or I owned, but we rented it quite a bit as kids and never got very far. But it's kind of like if you remember a game called Cobra Triangle, that was on our list a number of videos ago. And it was the boat game where you had to face sea serpents and stuff like that. We rented that game all the time, but it was so fucking hard. We never really got that far, but we just loved playing it so much it didn't matter. That was the same with Adventure Island. It's a very similar type of game to Super Mario Brothers. You're this single guy and you're running left and right and jumping on stuff. Very similar type of platformer as Super Mario Brothers. And the story of it is that you control this guy named Master Higgins. He has gone to Adventure Island because an evil witch doctor has captured his woman, the lovely Tina. And that's what they actually call her in the game, the lovely Tina. Now, captured women and your quest to reclaim them was a really big thing back in the day. This was a common theme amongst many games. The most notable one for me being Double Dragon. That was those two guys walk up to her in the start of the game, slug her in the gut, and then put her over his shoulder, and they walk away. Right? That was a very popular theme. So, but I'm not even sure I knew that was the story of this game when we were younger, because we never fucking got very far. Right? And I don't know if it says anything at the start of the game that that's what you're out to do. Right? So, but anyways, that is the story. So you're on Adventure Island. You got to make your way through it. There's 8 total areas, I think they're called, with each area consisting of 4 separate levels. The levels themselves are divided up into 4 different checkpoints. Now, when Master Higgins dies, he will respawn at whatever the latest checkpoint you reached is. And as you're going through the level, this game is kind of unique in the fact that you're kind of rushed in this game, because you do have a health meter, but it works a little differently. So at the start of the game, at the start of the first level, your health meter is full. It automatically depletes over time by a set amount. And so you're kind of under the gun. You're feeling the pressure already, just because you can't just dawdle around and do whatever and take your time. You've got to go. Now, there's lots of different environmental objects that you can run into, rocks and boulders and fires. Now, the boulders and fires, I believe, kill you instantly, but if you trip over a rock, it'll give your health gauge, it'll deplete it a little bit more, a little bit quicker, right? You'll get a little spike. So you've got to hurry, but you've also got to be fucking careful, right? The perfect combination of frustration. So the one way to combat this is you can replenish your health bar to certain degrees by picking up the most common item you'll find scattered throughout the game, which is various types of fruit. It's all over the place. Sometimes it can be, but the fruit disappears. Once it appears, it has a certain number of seconds before it starts flashing, and then it disappears. So if you're having trouble getting a high jump going and you miss out on that banana, you've just wasted a few seconds trying to get it, and you didn't even get it. So you've lost some health and not recovered it, right? So it's very right, playing this game. So that's the way you kind of keep your life going. You got to rush, you got to collect fruit, while also avoiding obstacles and defeating enemies. Now, one of the most difficult things in this game is the pitfalls. There's lots of jumping in this game, lots of jumping. Sometimes it's over objects like rocks and fire. Sometimes it's over an enemy if you don't want to kill it or can't kill it. But most of it is platforms. Now, what makes these difficult is that oftentimes there's enemies patrolling these platforms in very sequences that make it frustrating. Other times the platforms are moving either up or down or back and forth. And other times, as soon as you jump on a platform, it plummets. So you've got to be real quick about that. So the jumping in the platforms is a really, really hard part of this game. And then, of course, the last thing you have to watch out for are the various types of enemies you'll face in each level. In Adventure Island, it's almost entirely animalistic in nature. You've got spiders, badgers, king cobras, bats, all sorts of stuff. It's all animals, and no other real humans that I can think of. And then so at the end of each area on the 4th level, that level is usually a little briefer than the other 3. And at the end of it, you'll face that level boss. Now, the boss in each area of Adventure Island is always the witch doctor, but even though his body stays the same, when you face him each of the 8 times, his head will always be different. And the head is always some sort of representation of an animal. There's quite a few birds represented. I think there was a rhino or something like that represented. So, and maybe an elephant. So it's always like an animal type head on this same body that you have to face down. And of course, when you reach the end of the 8th and final area, you beat him for good and, of course, rescue the lovely Tina. She is quite lovely for an 8-bit pixelated woman. But yeah, so that's basically the game in a nutshell. And there's other types of items you can get. every once in a while you'll find an egg in the level, and if you break it open, there can be a few different things. A milk jug fully replenishes your health, so those are pretty rare and pretty awesome. Other times it's this weird flying eggplant creature that slowly drains your health even faster than it already is, so you don't want to get that. And then the other thing is a very key thing for certain parts of the game, a skateboard. Now, when Master Higgins jumps on this skateboard, it totally changes the style of the game. You can no longer move forwards and backs at your forward and back at your own discretion. When you jump on the skateboard, you're always being pushed forward. You can pull back on it a bit to slow down a little bit, but you're always being forced to move. So that can make things a little tricky, but it also, when you're on the skateboard, you can go faster and you can jump farther. So in certain areas, this might be required, and in others, it might not suit the style of what you're coming up against in that area of a level. So it's kind of situational dependent. And the other thing it grants you is that you can take a hit on like a fire or whatever, and all you do is lose the skateboard and you're back on your 2 feet. So it grants you kind of an additional hit, right? And I think that's about it for items. There might be some other things. Certain things. I think there might be some points pickups you can get, and points are important because they earn you extra lives. But they're not key in this game, I don't think. So that's basically, like I said, the game in a nutshell. Now, this game, like I said, as soon as you see a screenshot of this game, the graphics, the look, everything, you know it's a Nintendo Entertainment System game. And it just, certain games do that, and this is one of them. And I always get a fuzzy feeling from those types of games because I love the NES. I associate the NES with kind of not the genesis of my video game playing career, like I make money on it. Like I always played, like, my cousins had Atari, I had a Commodore 64. We always played video games from the first time, we could find some. But this was the start of my serious gaming obsession, was with the NES. And it was such a fun time in my childhood. I was only like, I don't know, 10, 11, something like that. So I have really fond memories of the NES and the feeling that system and those games gave me. So when I see a game like that so screams NES, I always have a soft spot for it. It always gives me fuzzy, warm vibes, and Adventure Island does that. Just the downsides of Adventure Island, and they're not downsides in terms of, oh, they fucked this up or whatever. They're kind of on purpose. The controls in this game can be really tricky, especially the jumping. You hold down a button to gain extra speed, and when you jump with the extra speed, you can do a higher jump. But it's really sensitive, so it's, sometimes you're trying to jump up, like I said, to get a really high banana, and you're jumping 3 or 4 times, you can't fucking get up there, and then the banana disappears, and you're like, son of a bitch, right? So there's lots of different little things like that with the controls and the gameplay that just, they're not glitches, they're not bad, they're just tricky, and it makes the game super hard at times. There's some points in the game where it's fairly easy, especially early, but the game does get tricky, and you really, really have to buckle down and learn and dissect what you're doing, and come up with a plan almost to, okay, we got to jump here, fire at the bat when you're at this point in your jump, like, it's really tricky. And the reason this game took so long is in the second last level of the game, so area 8, level 3, we ran into this really tricky sequence right past the 3rd checkpoint, I think it is, where you've got to jump across a bunch of falling platforms with these bats that drop down and come at you. And it was so hard. The timing and the distance you have to jump while also trying to either jump over or shoot these bats, it was so impossibly hard that we spent a number of weeks only playing that portion of the level and not passing it. So we lost a lot of time on this game, and at one point we were like, did we just abandon this one? Like, can we fucking do this? And so then on the last night we were playing it, we were like, let's go back to the start of this level, try and find the skateboard, get the skateboard, and try this area with with the skateboard, and it made a huge difference. It still took us a handful of tries to work things out, but yeah, we got through it that very night in not a lot of time after we found the skateboard, and finally were able to get past that hump into the final level of the game, which was then not, still a little tricky at times, but nothing like we were running into with that second last level. It was unbelievable. We were like, we've spent more time on this one section of this level than we have the whole friggin' game, you know, like it was just nuts. So so it was one of those games that also, although it was fun and we finally got to beat a game that we loved as kids, but we never really got that far in. You know, we finally beat it, and it was quite rewarding to finally get a win on this game, right? Especially considering how friggin' difficult it was. So that was a nice way to finish off this trio of Bill 69 games. So, if my math is correct, which oftentimes it is not, I think that's 60 total games we've done now. So I think we've got 20 entries, 20 videos. This should be the 20th. 3 games a piece. That's 20, 40, 60. That means we got 9 games left. We've already started on the next 2. So we are well on our way to hopefully getting the next video and a sequence of 3 games completed. So don't hold your breath though, because we picked a semi-easy one, a really hard one, and then we're still unsure of what the third one's going to be. So I say we're already underway and we've got 2 games on the go, but it still may be some time before we get to the next 3 fully completed. So, but until then, you know, go do some happy gaming yourself, and I guarantee I'll be back as soon as I possibly can. Toodles!
Meow.